This is HFY Vanguard, where storms test men and desire tests gods. One human, one alien, and tonight the hunger finally ends. The story begins now. The sky over Erida was not supposed to bleed. Yet tonight it did. Veins of violet lightning crawling across a horizon, the color of old bruises, tearing open the heavens like a wounded god. Max Reeves had seen storms on dozens of worlds, but nothing like this. Nothing alive. He ran, his boots slammed against the spongy soil, each step releasing a puff of phosphorescent spores that glittered and vanished in the gale. His breath came out ragged through the filter mask, every inhale tasting of static. Behind him, the forest screamed. The meteorologists at the outpost had said the hurricane would pass 100 miles north. They'd said he had time, but the storm had changed its mind, as if the planet itself had decided it wanted him. Erida's hurricanes weren't made of wind and rain alone. The atmosphere here was rich with ionized particles, the kind that turned thunder into voltage and air into death. The data logs called them electrical superstorms. Max called them executioners. He could already feel the charge crawling up his arms. His hair stood on end beneath the hood of his suit. "Perfect," he muttered between breaths. "Just perfect." The comm unit in his ear was dead noise, static like the universe laughing. The trees around him were grotesque and beautiful, towering spires of fibrous bark that twisted as though alive, their surfaces pulsing faintly with bioluminescent veins. The wind whipped through them, and they bent moaning, shedding strips of glowing pollen that swirled in the electric air like ghostly ribbons. Max's pack weighed heavy against his back, filled with tools, scanners, and a few priceless relics he'd dug out of Erida's soil. He was a professional scavenger, or as he preferred, a cultural preservation specialist. But right now, preservation meant survival. He skidded to a halt at the edge of a ravine. The storm howled above like a predator's roar. He checked his scanner signal, ghosting weak pings flickering across the display. Something solid, something metallic, less than 200 meters ahead. That's all he needed. Shelter. Anything with a roof and walls thick enough to keep out the lightning. He took a running leap across the ravine. The soil on the other side gave way under his boots, and for a breathless instant he was weightless, tumbling through the thick red rain before catching himself on a root that pulsed like a vein. He pulled up, cursing. "Hell of a way to die, Reeves," he muttered, pushing forward again. The wind hit him like a hammer. A surge of static flashed across the ground, crawling through the moss like living fire. The sensors on his wrist beeped a warning: voltage spike, danger level extreme. He had minutes, maybe less, before the electrical field became lethal. He forced his legs to move. Each step was a fight. The forest floor was turning liquid, rippling underfoot. Lightning struck somewhere behind him, and for a split second, he saw everything. The twisted canopy, the red sun setting like a dying ember, the storm spiraling in the distance like a god descending. Then he saw it. Half buried in a hill ahead, half consumed by vines, was a structure. Not natural. Oval doorway, metallic sheen under layers of dirt. The scanner on his wrist pinged wildly. Artificial. He stumbled forward, cutting through the vines with his knife. The metal underneath was cold slick, too smooth to be human. The doorway was covered in intricate swirling engravings that shimmered faintly as lightning danced overhead. They looked almost alive, the way they pulsed in rhythm with the storm. "Please be a shelter," he breathed. He searched for a handle, a panel, anything. Nothing. The designs twisted under his light like liquid mercury. On instinct, he pressed his palm against the center. The metal flared blue. A ripple of light traced the carvings, spreading outward in luminous waves. There was a hiss, ancient seals breaking, and the door slid sideways with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through his bones. Warm air exhaled from the darkness beyond, thick and stale. He ducked inside just as the wind outside shrieked like tearing metal. The door sealed behind him with mechanical finality, shutting out the storm. Silence dropped like a curtain. For the first time in hours, Max could hear his own heartbeat. The air was heavy, too still, too old, but breathable. He switched on his wrist light. The beam cut through the black to reveal a narrow corridor stretching deeper into the hillside. The walls glowed faintly where his light touched smooth and seamless, covered in the same swirling designs as the entrance. Not built grown. That was his first thought. The architecture looked biological, as if molten metal had cooled into shape around invisible bones. Everything curved, no corners, no straight lines. It felt like walking into the veins of something ancient. He took a cautious step forward. The floor responded with a soft thrum under his boots. The scanner flickered again, power signatures everywhere, faint but alive. This place wasn't abandoned. It was sleeping. Max felt a shiver crawl up his spine. He'd found hundreds of ruins before, most dead for millennia, stripped of mystery by centuries of archaeologists. But this one watched him. He moved deeper, every sound amplified by the perfect acoustics of the tunnel, the creak of his boots, the rasp of his breath, the faint hum of distant machinery. Then he froze. Something breathed. It was faint, almost lost in the background. A low, rhythmic exhalation that didn't belong to the storm or the facility. A living sound. He raised his pistol, thumbed the safety off, and turned slowly. The light from his wrist cast long shadows that trembled across the curved walls. "Hello," he called. His voice came back warped, as if the walls themselves whispered the word back at him. Another breath. Closer this time, softer, almost feminine. "Who's there?" Max demanded, sweeping the light in a slow arc. The beam caught on something ahead, a shimmer of motion, the glint of blue. For a heartbeat, it looked like a reflection until it blinked. A voice drifted through the air, low and melodic, brushing his mind like silk over skin. "My fast ends today." The words echoed not loud but heavy, ancient. Max's finger tightened on the trigger, but he didn't fire. He should have. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but something about the tone of that voice rooted him in place. It wasn't hunger he heard, it was relief. The light quivered in his hand. The air grew warmer, scented with ozone, and something faintly sweet, like cinnamon, carried by static. The corridor ahead shimmered, and from that shimmer a shape began to emerge. A figure, tall, humanoid, moving with the liquid grace of a predator. The storm outside raged, unseen lightning, flashing through cracks in the doorway like the pulse of a dying god. Inside, Max stood alone in the living veins of an alien vault, facing a creature whose voice had just awakened after centuries of silence. And as her shadow lengthened across the wall, he realized something terrifying. The storm hadn't been hunting him. It had been her calling him home. The darkness shifted like water, disturbed by something large beneath its surface. Max's light caught faint movement, a ripple of form that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite shadow. He steadied his pistol, heartbeat pounding loud enough to drown the hum of alien machinery. Then she stepped forward. At first, she was only suggestion, light sliding across blue skin, the shimmer of movement like silk in zero gravity. Then the full image assembled, a tall, slender figure, curves outlined by the dim bioluminescent glow of the quarter. Her skin was deep cobalt, the hue of thunderclouds before a strike. Long azure hair flowed behind her like an electric current, each strand tipped in faint white luminescence. And her eyes, glowing pupilless bright as twin moons, regarded him with an intelligence that was both ancient and predatory. Max froze, not just because of her beauty, but because every instinct screamed that she was dangerous. She tilted her head. The motion was feline deliberate. Her ears, elongated, furred at the tips like a fox's, twitched, as if testing the air for threat or scent. Behind her, a large, sleek tail swayed once, twice the movement, controlled and calm. There was no doubt left. Whatever she wasn't human. "You've broken my solitude," she said, her voice carrying the faint vibration of electricity, smooth and low. "In my fast." The words struck him harder than the storm outside. I'm not here to intrude," Max managed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just shelter." The storm. Her eyes flashed briefly, the light within them pulsing like a heartbeat. "The storm answers to me." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the soft thrum of the bunker's walls. "You summoned that?" Max asked, incredulous. "I called nothing," she said, stepping closer. "But Erida remembers me. This planet breathes as I once did. When it moves, I feel it." He took a half step back, the muzzle of his pistol trembling slightly. The air around her shimmered faintly, a distortion like heat mirage. Her presence carried energy, literal energy, tiny arcs of light dancing across her fingertips whenever she moved. I haven't tasted meat in centuries, she continued, tone soft conversational, yet laced with hunger. You are interesting prey. Max's trigger finger twitched. Let's not make this a menu, he said evenly, despite the tightness in his throat. I'm just looking to not get fried out there. That earned him a smile, small, sharp, revealing teeth that gleamed slightly too long for comfort. Human, confident even when cornered. Habit, he muttered. I've made a living walking into places I shouldn't. She took another step forward, slow and deliberate. The wall seemed to respond to her proximity. The swirling patterns along the corridor brightened, pulsing with faint rhythm like a heartbeat syncing with hers. This place, he said, carefully gesturing with his free hand, it's not human design. Who built it? My people, she said simply. The Vexeri. Her gaze drifted along the walls as though remembering something long lost. We were architects of thought and flesh. We grew our sanctuaries. We gave them memory. Grew, Max repeated, his mind racing. You mean this bunker? This thing, it's alive. Her eyes flickered back to him, amused. Alive enough to listen, dead enough to keep secrets. He swallowed hard. And you've been here, what, hiding in the dark this whole time? I was bound, she replied, her voice taking on an undertone of bitterness that hummed through the air. Assigned to guard this vault when the stars still sang with our kind's arrogance. Then the song stopped. Her clawed fingers brushed the wall as she walked past him, leaving a faint trail of light where she touched. Max turned slowly, keeping his weapon lowered, but ready. The air grew heavier, warmer, the smell of ozone thickened. He dared a question. Guarding? What exactly? Knowledge, she said. Power. Sin. She looked over her shoulder, eyes gleaming. We kept what should not exist. And I, the fool who believed she could master it, became its prisoner. Max studied her every word, scraping something deeper than fear, curiosity. He'd heard stories of ancient vaults, lost civilizations that sealed away their own destruction. But this was the first time he had heard one speak for itself. So what now, he asked quietly. You planning to eat me or talk me to death? Another flicker of that almost smile. Perhaps both. Lightning flashed outside, the sound muffled but heavy like the sky collapsing. Dust rained from the ceiling. The structure groaned but didn't falter. Max holstered his pistol, though not completely. Fine. You want to talk? Start with why this place woke up the moment I touched it. Her expression softened, curiosity blooming across her features. You carry the spark, the pattern of life unfamiliar to this vault. Human bioelectric signatures are adaptable. She stepped closer, her eyes studying him as if he were a fascinating experiment. The vault read you as a key. You opened what even I could not. He blinked. Lucky me. Or unlucky, she murmured, her voice dipping low enough to make the hairs on his neck rise. Their gazes locked. Something electric passed between them, invisible but palpable. He couldn't tell if it was the residual charge from the storm or something in the way she looked at him, like she could see through him past his skin into the electrical pulse of his own life. You're not afraid, she said softly, almost curious. Most would have fled the moment they saw me. I've seen worse, Max said, though his voice betrayed a tremor. And I've learned running usually makes the thing chase harder. At that, her tail flicked, once amused. Wise or foolish, I can never tell with humans. You've met humans before, he asked, seizing on the word. Long ago. Traders, raiders, scholars. I watched your kind rise from the dust of your cradle world. Her tone shifted, nostalgic, almost fond. You burned so brightly and so briefly. The admission caught him off guard. He realized that beneath her predatory grace was something else, loneliness. How long have you been down here, he asked. Time blurs after the first millennium, she said quietly. I count storms instead of years. 1,000 years. Max exhaled slowly, realizing the gravity of what stood before him. She wasn't just an alien. She was a living relic, history embodied. The silence stretched between them, not awkward, but heavy with unspoken meaning. Then she turned away, her tail brushing lightly across his thigh as she passed. The touch sent a faint static jolt through his body, not painful, just startlingly intimate. He fought the urge to react, to move, to do anything that might break the fragile balance forming between them. "I am called Niara," she said, glancing back. "Last warden of the Vexary Vault." "Max Reeves," he replied automatically. "Professional idiot, apparently." Her lips curved slightly. "An honest introduction. That is rare." A faint tremor ran through the floor. Somewhere deeper within the structure, machinery stirred. Lights flickered along the corridor, ancient systems flickering back to life in response to their voices. Nira frowned. "You have awakened the vault fully. It listens now." "To what?" "To you," she whispered. "And to me." She moved ahead, motioning for him to follow. Despite every survival instinct yelling, "Don't," Max found his feet moving after her. The air grew warmer, the hum beneath the walls louder. Strange glyphs flared to life as they walked, spiraling patterns of light, forming symbols that drifted across the surface like living ink. Nara touched one and it rippled beneath her hand. These walls hold memories or records of what came before. Max leaned closer, studying the designs. "Looks like writing or data flow." "Both," she said. "We encoded thought directly into material." He whistled softly. "You mean the walls are sentient?" "Not sentient," she corrected. "Conscious." That one word made his skin crawl and fascinate him at the same time. The corridor opened into a larger chamber. The air was thick with static, every surface glimmering faintly like polished obsidian under lightning. A massive symbol dominated the far wall, three interlocked spirals glowing with inner light. Beneath it, a console pulsed slowly as though waiting for a command. Nira approached it and pressed her palm against the surface. The console responded, emitting a low harmonic hum. Holographic patterns blossomed into the air. Geometric diagrams, alien symbols, fragments of starlight frozen mid-rotation. Max stepped forward, mesmerized. "What is all this?" "The heart of the vault," she murmured, "and the beginning of every sin my kind ever committed." Her gaze turned toward him, and in her luminous eyes he saw both guilt and hope reflected like twin stars. "Tell me, human," she said softly, "what will you do when you finally find the knowledge your species craves?" He met her gaze without hesitation. "Depends if it's worth dying for." A faint smile curved her lips. "Then perhaps, Max Reeves, you are exactly the kind of human this galaxy still needs." The light of the console flared, washing over them both in blinding brilliance, and far below in the bowels of the living vault, something ancient stirred awake, responding to a voice it had not heard in 3,000 years. The hum of the console faded, leaving behind a silence thick enough to feel. Max stood still, watching faint tendrils of light crawl across the alien interface like veins of liquid energy. The storm outside had become a distant echo, muted, irrelevant. Inside the vault, something else had awakened. Niara's eyes glowed brighter in the newfound illumination. "The systems recognize you now," she murmured. "You've triggered a reactivation protocol. After 3,000 years, the vault remembers purpose again." Max studied the holographic shapes floating before them. The diagrams twisted, rearranging into what looked like star charts, planetary alignments, equations written in alien geometry. "I didn't mean to start anything," he said. "I just needed a roof over my head." "You have given a corpse breath," she replied, her tone unreadable. "Intent is irrelevant to consequence." He turned toward her, but she wasn't looking at him. Her gaze was distant, haunted. The soft luminescence from the console danced across her blue skin, tracing the curve of her cheek, the line of her throat, the glint of something metallic around her neck. A collar, thin, seamless, etched with the same swirling patterns as the walls. "What's that?" Max asked. Her clawed fingers brushed it absently, as if only then remembering its existence. "A reminder. And a lock." "A lock. It binds me here. To this vault. To its purpose." Her voice dropped lower, heavier. "And to its sins." The words hung in the air like smoke. Max took a slow step closer. "You said you were a guardian." Her eyes flicked toward him, cool, sharp, assessing. "A warden, a prisoner, both. Why would your people do that to you?" For a moment, the ancient calm in her expression cracked. Pain flickered there, brief but unmistakable. "Because I failed them. Or perhaps because I succeeded too well." He frowned. "That's not an answer." Her tail swayed once slow and deliberate. "You ask questions like a child poking at fire not knowing if it burns." Fire's what keeps us alive, he said. We poke because we have to. Something like amusement tugged at the corner of her lips. Human, she murmured, as though tasting the word. Always reaching for what scorches them. He met her gaze steadily, and always surviving it. Their eyes held for a heartbeat too long. The air between them seemed to thrum. Nara turned away, breaking the connection. Follow me. There are things you must see before you decide whether to live or die here. The corridor she led him through curved downward in a slow spiral, the walls alive with shifting light. Max noticed the faint vibration in the floor of the vault breathing. The deeper they went, the more the metallic surface began to resemble organic tissue, as though the structure had once been grown, not built. This architecture, he said, scanning the walls, it's adaptive, responsive, almost like it's reading us. It is, she replied. The Vexari did not build with dead materials. Our creations were living extensions of our will. The vault feels intention as much as command. That's beautiful, Max admitted. It was hubris, Niara said quietly, and hubris always eats its makers. They emerged into a vast chamber where translucent cocoons hung from the ceiling like inverted chandeliers, each one pulsing faintly with light. Inside the membranes, faint silhouettes floated, indistinct humanoid shapes frozen in perfect stillness. Max's stomach turned. What the hell are those? Echoes, Niara said. Preserved minds, scientists, soldiers, scholars. When the purge came, they sought immortality in storage. But there is no immortality, only waiting. He stepped closer to one of the cocoons. The shape inside shifted slightly as though reacting to his presence. Are they alive? They are data now, she said. A record of what the Vexari once were and of what we lost. The glow from the pods painted her in haunting light. She seemed almost translucent herself, a ghost among ghosts. I tended to them once, she continued softly. Whispered to them when silence grew too heavy, but even whispers fade. Max felt something twist in his chest. For all her power, she was unbearably lonely. 3,000 years alone in a tomb of her own creation. Why stay? He asked quietly. Why not try to escape? The collar ensures I cannot. My life force is tied to the vault. If I step beyond its boundaries, both cease. He looked at the metal band again. That's not a lock, it's a leash. Her gaze met his sharp and unflinching. You speak as if you understand imprisonment. I understand guilt, he said, and I know what it's like to be trapped by it. Something shifted in her expression. The predatory edge softened. She studied him with new curiosity. Tell me, Max Reeves, what changed you? He hesitated. A promise I broke, long time ago. Someone trusted me to protect them. I didn't. The admission hung in the air between them. For a moment, the ancient alien and the scarred human were just two souls bound by the same invisible weight. Nira stepped closer. Then we are alike, you and I, bound by failures, kept alive by penance. The glow of the vault reflected in her eyes, making them seem infinite. You carry the same storm I do, Max Reeves. That is why Erida called you. He frowned, called me. This planet is alive in ways your species cannot yet comprehend. It responds to resonance, to emotion, to need. I have whispered to the storm for centuries, and it has finally answered by bringing you. He tried to laugh, but the sound came out rough. You're saying a hurricane dragged me here on purpose. I am saying nothing on Erida is accidental. She raised her hand, and arcs of blue light flared between her claws, illuminating the chamber in stark flashes. Everything here is energy, life, death, desire, and all energy seeks equilibrium. Her tail brushed his side again, intentional this time. The contact sent a jolt through him, more potent than static. He flinched, breath catching. Careful, he warned, though his voice lacked conviction. Her smile returned slow and deliberate. You are trembling from fear or from something else. He didn't answer, he couldn't. She circled him, once movements liquid the air thick with ozone. Your heart races. Your pulse hums like lightning before a strike. You are alive in a way my kind have forgotten. Maybe that's the problem, he said hoarsely. You've been locked away too long. Perhaps, she whispered, stopping directly behind him. Perhaps I need reminding. Her hand grazed his jawline, claws gentle against his skin. A faint trail of heat followed her touch. So fragile, she murmured. so temporary. And yet you stand here defying extinction itself. He turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze over his shoulder. That's what we do best. The air crackled. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Niara drew her hand back as if remembering herself. The glow around her dimmed. We should not linger here. The deeper systems will awaken soon. They may not recognize you as harmless. What systems? Defenses, traps, sentinels that still believe the purge is happening. Sounds friendly, he muttered. She moved toward another passageway. Come, the vault's core will tell you the rest. Max followed his thoughts, spinning. Every step brought him deeper into a place that defied everything he knew about civilization, science, and faith. And at the center of it all walked a being who could kill him as easily as she could touch him, yet something told him she wouldn't. Not yet. They entered another chamber, smaller, filled with hovering crystals emitting faint harmonic tones. Niara approached one and pressed her palm against it. A holographic projection shimmered into being a memory playing out in front of them. The image showed a younger Niara standing before a council of luminous vexery. Her voice rang with conviction. Energy cannot destroy, it can only transform. We will create the engine of rebirth. Then the projection flickered images of stars collapsing planets consumed by light. Screams, silence. Nera watched her own past unravel, face unreadable. That was my sin, she said quietly. We sought infinite energy. We found annihilation instead. Max looked at her. You didn't do that alone. I led them, she replied. I signed the equations. My hands built the core. She touched the collar again. This was the price. He stepped forward, his voice steady. Then maybe it's time someone else helped you pay it. She blinked, slow, deliberate, like a creature not used to surprise. You would help me knowing what I've done. He shrugged. You've been paying for it for 3,000 years. That's more than enough penance for anyone. Her tail brushed his leg, once more gentler this time. You speak as though you believe in redemption. I have to, he said. Otherwise, what's the point of surviving? For the first time since they met, she smiled, not sharp, not mocking, but real. Then perhaps human there is hope yet for both of us. The vault pulsed around them, light building towards something greater. And as the ancient structure stirred deeper into life, Max realized with a chill that neither of them had any idea what awakening the past would truly unleash. The light spilling from the crystalline core brightened until it felt like standing inside a frozen sun. Max shielded his eyes, blinking against the glare. The projections around him shifted holograms, layering upon holograms, until the entire chamber became a cathedral of memory. Nera stood at its center, motionless. Her expression was unreadable as the images solidified vexery cities, suspended in the skies of impossible worlds, towers of silver and glass gleaming like living circuits. Beings of cobalt and violet moved through them with serene purpose, their every gesture leaving trails of light in the air. It was breathtaking and wrong. The perfection was too precise, too deliberate, like a machine pretending to be divine. This is what we were, Niara said softly. Her voice carried a tremor that didn't fit her usual poise. We built wonders to outlast death. We turned our biology into code and our souls into equations. We thought eternity would bow to us. The hologram shifted. A laboratory appeared, a vast circular hall filled with alien instruments. At its heart, suspended in a containment field, pulsed a sphere of condensed light no larger than a human heart, yet radiating power that seemed to warp reality itself. Max stared. That thing looks alive. It was, Nara said. We called it the Worldbreaker Core, the culmination of a century of research. Energy made flesh. The projection zoomed in and Max saw a younger Niara standing before the core, surrounded by other Vexery scientists. She was radiant eyes, alight with pride and belief. I led Project Singularity, the real Niara whispered. We thought we had found a way to harness the birth of stars. Controlled collapse. Infinite energy from finite matter. It was supposed to end scarcity forever. The holographic Niara in the recording spoke, her voice echoing eerily in the chamber. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Today the Vexery ascend beyond limitation. Then came the first test. The recorded core flared to life, humming with increasing frequency. The scientists watched as the field rippled, warping space itself, A miniature star blossomed, and for a heartbeat, the chamber shone brighter than daylight. Then it collapsed. Perfectly. Controlled. Contained. Cheers erupted. Beautiful, Max murmured. Nera's claws tightened. Beauty and doom often share the same face. The next sequence played. The same core larger now being loaded into a vessel marked with Vexari military insignia. The holographic scientists argued Max couldn't understand the alien tongue, but their gestures told the story: protest, anger, fear. Then a male Vexari slammed his hand on the table, shouting over the others. The defense counsel, Nera, explained bitterly. They saw a weapon where we saw salvation. I argued. I lost. The scene cut to a star system, a brilliant sun surrounded by a dozen inhabited worlds. A fleet hovered nearby. The worldbreaker pulsed at its center like a second sun. Project Singularity, final test, the recording announced. The light intensified, then the star imploded. No explosion, no fire, just sudden absolute collapse. The surrounding planets tore apart as gravity folded inward. The fleet disintegrated into static. The feed cut to black. When the holograms faded, silence consumed the room. Nera spoke first, her voice hollow. 12 billion lives, gone in a moment. Their sun turned to a wound in the galaxy. I designed the equations that made it possible. Max stood speechless. The enormity of it pressed down on him like gravity. He'd seen war. He'd seen extinction events caused by human arrogance, but this was godlike ruin. He finally found his voice. You didn't fire the weapon. I built it, she said. The difference is meaningless to the dead. She turned away, and for the first time since meeting her, she looked small. Not physically, her form was still that of a towering, perfect being, but her spirit seemed diminished, frayed by memory. The council ordered me to destroy the research, she continued, but I knew they would hide it, use it again. So I did what they would not. She reached out to the glowing console, and another memory flickered to life. Nera, standing before the council head, bowed, her collar gleaming freshly forged. The responsibility is mine, she said in the recording. I will guard the vault. I will ensure this knowledge never again touches the stars. And you accept the sentence, a counselor asked. Eternal guardianship, she replied. Until all danger has passed or until I am forgotten. The memory froze. I volunteered, Nera said quietly. But before they sealed me away, they took my memories. Erased everything that could remind me of what I had done. She touched her temple, her voice trembling. For centuries I dreamt of fire without knowing why. The collar kept me alive, kept me bound, and kept me ignorant. Until you came. Max felt a chill crawl down his spine. Me. You woke the vault, she said, turning to face him. And with it, you woke my past. He stared into those glowing eyes and saw the weight of 3,000 years staring back: guilt, loneliness, and something dangerously close to hope. You didn't deserve this, he said finally. Nera's laughter was bitter and short. Deserve has nothing to do with it. I unleashed death. This was mercy compared to what I earned. He stepped closer. You tried to create energy for life, not for war. That's not a sin, that's science. The sin belongs to those who used it. You sound like I once did, she said, before I learned that intent does not absolve outcome. Maybe not, he said, but punishment without end doesn't fix anything either. Her gaze flickered over him, searching for mockery. Finding none, she whispered, you would free me, even knowing what I am. Max nodded slowly. I've seen what happens when knowledge gets buried. It never stays buried. Someone always digs it up, someone worse. If this vault's going to wake better, it happens with you than without you. She tilted her head. You trust easily. No, he said, I just trust my read on people. And right now I see someone who's been paying for one mistake for too long. For a long moment, Nera said nothing. Then she reached out, claws brushing the air near his cheek but not touching. Humans. You burn so hot, so brief. It's terrifying. Yeah, he said, it's what keeps us moving. Her lips parted as if to answer, but before she could, the floor beneath them trembled. Lights flickered. Deep within the vault, something groaned like a sleeping beast disturbed. Nera's eyes widened. The activation sequence. The vault's core has reconnected to planetary systems. I didn't think that was possible. What does that mean? Max asked. It means Erida itself is listening. The vault was built not just underground, but into the planet's living network. its storm patterns magnetic fields, all connected. Then what happens if it fully wakes up? She turned toward the pulsing light of the core. Then the storm will no longer obey physics. It will obey memory. As if in response, a faint rumble echoed through the quarters, the sound of thunder from miles above, or perhaps from beneath their feet. Nera's tail lashed once. We must reach the command nexus. If the vault links completely, the planet could relive the collapse. Relive it, recreate it, she corrected grimly. The Worldbreaker's algorithms are still in its system. The vault's heart is a fragment of the original weapon. Max's stomach dropped. You built your prison on top of a bomb. A lesson for eternity, she said bitterly. And now the bomb is waking. Without another word, she started down the corridor, her movements swift and purposeful. Max followed close behind, trying to ignore the way the walls seemed to pulse faster as they moved like arteries carrying an accelerating heartbeat. The further they went, the more unstable the environment became, panels flickering, sparks cascading down from the ceiling. The hum grew into a low, resonant vibration that vibrated in Max's chest cavity. "Can't you shut it down?" he shouted over the rising noise. "I can try," she said. "But the systems respond to dual resonance, now mine and yours. It recognizes us as two halves of a single key. Lucky us." They reached a control platform that overlooked a cavernous chamber filled with vertical columns of blue light. Each column pulsed in time with the rhythm of the storm outside. Nera placed her hands on the console. Her collar glowed violently, arcs of energy leaping between the engravings. She gritted her teeth. "It's rejecting my command. I'm still bound." Max didn't hesitate. He grabbed one of the tools from his belt, a compact frequency tuner designed for field repairs, and slammed it onto the surface beside her. "Then let's override it together." She shot him a look, half disbelief, half admiration. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Welcome to being human," he said. He adjusted the tuner, syncing its pulse to match the vault's oscillations. The lights around them flickered, stabilizing slightly. Niara hissed in pain as feedback rippled through her body, but she held her position. The air filled with the scent of ozone and burning metal. Finally, the hum began to lower, the columns dimming to a steadier glow. The trembling ceased. Nera slumped forward, breathing heavily. Max caught her before she fell. "It's done," she whispered. "For now." He held her steady, feeling the faint vibration of power still thrumming under her skin. Her eyes fluttered open, meeting his. "You risked your life," she said. He smiled faintly. "Wouldn't be the first time for a bad idea." She exhaled a sound somewhere between a sigh and a laugh. "You humans are insanity given form. And you," he said softly, "are proof that even gods can break." Her gaze softened. "And maybe with you they can heal." Outside, thunder rolled across Erida's sky like the breath of an awakening titan. Deep within its living core, the vault slept again for now. But both of them knew it was only a matter of time before something else came looking for what they had just reawakened. The silence after the shutdown didn't last long. It was the kind of silence that warned of worse things coming, the breath before the next scream. Nera was still leaning against him, the faint light from her collar flickering like a dying ember. Max could feel the vibration of her pulse, not in beats, but in waves and energy that felt too vast to belong to one body. Then a low rhythmic rumble echoed through the floor. Not the storm, something closer, mechanical. Nera's eyes snapped open, the glow returning. "No." "What is it?" Max asked, already reaching for his pistol. "The vault's outer doors. They're being breached." "How you said nothing alive even knows this place exists." "Nothing alive, that should," she said darkly. "But scavengers always smell blood or profit." Another tremor shook the walls. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. The holographic panels nearby flickered to life, showing fragmented security feeds, distorted, but clear enough to reveal shapes moving through the storm outside. Max recognized them immediately. Krell, he spat, of course. The reptilian scavengers were parasites of the frontier, half mercenary, half looter, all teeth. They followed disasters like vultures, ripping apart whatever survived. On the feed, their ship hovered above the forest, sleek and black, its hull vibrating with the deep hum of sonic drills. Bolts of purple lightning struck it repeatedly, but the craft held steady, its shield shimmering. Nera's claws dug into the console, sparks leaping between her fingers. "They're cutting through the outer seal." Can your defenses stop them? After 3 millennia? Unlikely. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. The vault was never meant to be assaulted. It was meant to be forgotten. Max's jaw tightened. Then let's remind them why that was a bad idea. He holstered his pistol, checking his remaining ammo, not much, but it would have to do. Nara tilted her head, regarding him curiously. You would fight for something you barely understand. He grinned. That's how I spend most of my days. The floor quaked again. The lights dimmed. On the screens, the Krell broke through, 8 of them, heavily armed, their armor cobbled together from scavenged tech. Their scaled bodies glistened in the red stormlight, eyes glinting with greed. Let them come, Nira whispered. I have been still for too long. They moved fast through the corridors, their weapons humming with unstable plasma. Max and Niara positioned themselves near the inner vault entrance, a massive pair of doors made from the same living metal as the rest of the structure. They'll breach in minutes, Max said, scanning the readings on his wrist display. Then we'll need more than minutes, Nira replied, her voice dropping to a low hum. The collar at her throat glowed faintly again, resonating with the vault. When the council bound me, they feared I would use my gifts against them. They were right. Max glanced at the device, then at her. If I can remove it. You'll die trying, she said. It's keyed to the vault's frequency. Any tampering will trigger a feedback surge strong enough to vaporize you. He smiled faintly. Good thing I'm bad at listening. Before she could protest, he pulled out the data crystal they'd used earlier and slid it into his multi-tool. The holographic interface bloomed to life, showing the collar's frequency pattern. You think you can outsmart the Vexery, she asked, equal parts incredulous and amused. I don't have to outsmart them, he said, fingers flying across the controls. I just have to annoy them long enough for the right waveform to click. The first explosion hit like thunder. The inner doors shuddered, energy fields rippling. The Krell were cutting through. Niara stepped forward, pressing her palm to the metal. The vault responded with a low groan, its engravings glowing fiercely. I can delay them, she said, but not for long. Then delay them, Max replied. Buy me time. Her tail flicked, once annoyance or approval, he couldn't tell. You're insane. I get that a lot. He tuned the frequency modulator, aligning it to the collar's resonance. The air filled with a sharp, rising tone that made his teeth ache. Niara winced, her claws flexing involuntarily. It's reacting, she hissed. Good sign or bad? Both. A crack formed across the vault doors. Light bled through. The Krell roared from the other side. Faster, she urged, her voice trembling under the strain of holding the door shut with sheer will. Max adjusted one final dial. The tone hit a harmonic peak. The collar flared blinding white. Nira gasped, collapsing to one knee. The lock disengaged with a sound like breaking glass. The metal band fell to the floor, still glowing before fading to ash. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the air around her ignited. Blue-white light burst from her body, rippling through the chamber like a shockwave. The patterns on the walls pulsed in response, matching her energy. Her hair lifted as if caught in an invisible current, eyes blazing brighter than the vault lights. Oh, she whispered, and it was a sound of awe and fury mixed into one. I had forgotten what it felt like. The vault doors exploded inward. The Krell charged through, weapons raised, snarling in broken galactic standard. Kill the human, take the relic. Max dove behind a console as plasma bolts scorched the air. The smell of ozone filled his lungs. He fired back, hitting one in the shoulder. The creature screeched, spinning and collapsing. Then Niara moved. She didn't run. She didn't even seem to walk. She simply was a blur of motion and light. Her hand caught a Krell by the throat before it could aim. Arcs of electricity leapt from her claws, crawling over its armor and into flesh. The creature convulsed once, then went limp. Another Krell shouted, firing wildly. The plasma bolts bent midair, drawn toward Niara like iron to a magnet. She redirected them effortlessly, the shots ricocheting into another scavenger, blasting it off its feet. Max peeked over a cover, astonished. Remind me not to piss you off. She smiled, and there was nothing human in it. You woke me, Max Reeves. Now watch what you've done. 2 more Krell rushed her from behind, blades crackling with energy. She spun faster than sight, her tail slicing through the air like a whip of lightning. Both attackers hit the ground before their weapons did. My fast ends today, she said softly, the same words she had spoken when they first met, but now they carried the weight of thunder. Max reloaded, taking down another scavenger that tried to flank her. The remaining Krell faltered, realizing too late that they were not hunters, they were prey. "Fall back," one shouted. Nera raised her hand and lightning poured from her palm, crawling across the floor like living fire. The Krell screamed as the energy found them, burning through armor and bone. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of residual energy fading from the air. The scent of scorched metal and ozone hung heavy. Max rose slowly, surveying the aftermath. The chamber was a war zone, smoke curling, consoles shattered the floor, scorched with blackened arcs. Nera stood at the center, motionless. Her chest rose and fell slowly, each breath leaving a faint shimmer in the air. "Remind me again," he said cautiously, "whose side you're on." She turned toward him, eyes still glowing like stars. "Yours if you'll have me." He holstered his weapon. "After that show, you're damn well staying on my team." A faint laugh escaped her musical weary. "You humans, always ready to make allies with monsters." Maybe, he said, stepping closer. "Or maybe we just see the monster that wants to fight the bigger one." Her expression softened. For the first time since her awakening, her glow dimmed to something gentle. "You freed me. No one ever has. I am in your debt." "Forget the debt," he said. "We're alive, that's enough." But she shook her head slowly. "No, you don't understand. You didn't just unbind me from the vault. You unbound what I was, what I am." She looked down at her hands, arcs of light still dancing between her fingers. The collar suppressed more than movement. It suppressed emotion, memory, instinct. Without it, she looked up at him, eyes luminous. "I remember everything, every death, every storm." He hesitated. "You okay?" Her lips curved faintly. "Define okay." He smiled grimly. "Alive, breathing, not trying to kill me." "Then yes," she said softly. "For now." Before he could reply, the console nearby beeped sharply. Niara turned, frowning. The holographic feed reactivated static, then a signal the Krell ship outside. Its engines were spooling up. "They're not all dead," Max realized. "One of them got out." Niara's gaze darkened. "If they escape with any data from this vault, they'll sell it to the highest bidder," he finished grimly. She stepped forward, her body already beginning to glow again. "Then we cannot let them leave." Max checked his weapon and nodded. "After you, Lightning Queen." She glanced back, smirking faintly. "Careful, human. Keep calling me that, and I might start to like you." "Already part of the plan," he said, grinning. Together, they moved toward the corridor leading to the surface. Behind them, the vault lights dimmed once more, the living structure groaning like a beast settling back to sleep. But neither of them looked back. Outside, the storm raged again. Only this time, it wasn't hunting Max Reeves. It was answering to Niara. The world above was still burning with stormlight when Max and Niara stepped out of the vault's upper passage. Lightning crawled across the sky in long, slow arcs, illuminating the jagged outline of the Krell dropship, hovering just beyond the ridge. Its engines screamed as it fought the storm's pull. Nera raised her hand and the air itself trembled. "They think they can flee my world." "Wait," Max said, touching her wrist. "Let them get high enough first. Then make it count." Her lips curved in something halfway between amusement and hunger. "Tactical cruelty. You are learning human." The ship climbed into the dark clouds, lightning wrapping around it like a serpent. Niara's eyes flared, twin stars burning against the storm. She whispered in Vexari, a tone too ancient to be sound, and the storm answered. A single perfect bolt split the heavens. It struck the Krell ship dead center. The explosion painted the night in blue-white fire. Shards rained down, trailing smoke and plasma. A second later, the thunder came deep and final. Max let out a long breath. That's one way to handle a cleanup. Nera's glow dimmed slowly. It will not stop them forever. Someone sent them here. Someone who knew this vault still existed. "Yeah," Max said grimly. "Krell don't do archaeology runs. They were hired." They made their way back down the slope as the rain began to fall. Not the violent, ionized downpour from before, but real rain, soft and cool. The storm's rage had broken. For the first time, the planet felt like it was breathing again. Inside the vault, the aftermath of battle lingered: smoke, the acrid bite of ozone, the scent of scorched metal and blood. The walls pulsed faintly, repairing themselves. The dead Krell lay scattered like discarded armor. Nira moved among them with eerie grace, her tail sweeping behind her. She stopped beside one of the bodies crouched and placed a hand on the corpse's neck. A faint pulse of light passed from her fingers into the creature's skull. "What are you doing?" Max asked. "Memory extraction," she said. "Every brain holds a final echo, a reflection of what it saw before death. That's both brilliant and terrifying." "Most things worth knowing are," she murmured. Her eyes glazed over, glowing softly. Then she spoke. They were following a signal, a beacon keyed to Vexary Tech. Someone sold them the coordinates. The transaction tag reads. Her voice slowed as though the name itself was venom. "Curator." Max frowned. "The Curator. Heard rumors about them back on Helios Station. Supposedly a black market broker dealing in pre-extinction tech. Nobody's ever seen their face." "Then they are worse than I feared," Nira said. "The Curator is not a person. It's an intelligence. A network of scavengers, merchants, and mercenaries bound by trade and forbidden knowledge. They traffic in ghosts." "So this wasn't a random find," Max said. "The Curator's been digging into Vexary ruins for years, and this vault was the jackpot." Nira nodded slowly. If they obtained fragments of the Worldbreaker algorithms, they could build one he finished. She stood towering over him, her expression solemn. "Then we must stop them." "We, huh?" he said, with a faint smile. "I like the sound of that." Nira tilted her head, studying him. "You speak lightly, but you know the Guancha. You have seen your species chase power before." "Yeah," he said, "and I've seen what happens when no one else stops it." The vault lights pulsed again once, twice, and then stabilized. Niara looked around surprised. "It's repairing faster than it should." "Could it be reacting to you?" Max asked. She frowned. "Perhaps. The vault was designed to bond with its keeper. But you and I are resonance merged when you unbound me. It may now see us both as custodians." "That's new," Max said. "A human and an alien goddess sharing the keys to a 3,000-year-old apocalypse vault." Her gaze softened. "Do not call me goddess." He grinned. "Why not? You've got the lightning, the wrath, the hair." Her tail flicked once in irritation, though the faint smile on her lips betrayed her amusement. "Humans. Always trivializing divinity. Helps keep us sane," he said. She looked at him for a long moment, so long that he began to feel heat rise in his face under her unblinking stare. Then quietly she said, "You risked yourself for me. You could have fled." "I don't run from things that matter," he said. Then perhaps she murmured, "You are what my people never were brave enough to face their own creation." The quiet stretched between them, filled only by the faint heartbeat of the vault's walls. The glow dimmed to a softer blue, bathing them both in light that felt strangely intimate. Nara's voice dropped. "When you unbound me, the vault registered us as a bonded pair. It recognized you as part of its living key." Max raised an eyebrow. "You mean like co-ownership?" "More like codependency," she said, her tone almost teasing. "If one of us dies, the vault goes dark." "Great," he said. "So now we're married by alien software." She blinked. The word unfamiliar, married, means we're stuck with each other. Her smile returned, this time gentler. "Then perhaps I should learn your customs." The tension that had filled the vault since their meeting eased. For the first time, there was warmth in the air instead of static. Max sat on a piece of fallen plating, exhaling slowly. "You know, this might be the weirdest day of my life." "You have many left to surpass it," she said. "Not if the Curator gets what it wants." Her expression darkened again. "Then we must reach them before they reach the next vault." "There are more." "Dozens," she said. "The Council scattered the Worldbreaker data across the galaxy, sealed in fragments. I was only one warden." Max looked up at her, realization dawning. "You're saying there are more like you?" "There were," she said, "but I do not know how many remain. Most likely, none." "Then you're the last line of defense." She glanced at him. "Not anymore." Something inside Max tightened at that. The weight of her words settled deep in his chest like a promise neither of them had spoken, but both already understood. They stood together amid the soft hum of the living vault. The rain outside continued to fall, gentle and rhythmic, washing away the scorch marks and the blood. Nara extended her hand, palm up, a faint shimmer of light dancing across her skin. "This world owes you no allegiance, Max Reeves, yet you bled for it. For me." That is rare. He looked at her hand, then placed his own against it. The moment their palms touched, a surge of warmth passed between them. Not electric, not painful, but alive. The vault's glow pulsed once in response, as though acknowledging the bond. What was that? He asked softly. An oath, she said. Old Vexera custom, to share purpose. Purpose, huh? He said, smiling faintly. Guess I could use one of those. Then we will make one, she replied. Together. The word lingered between them, full of promise and danger. From the depths of the vault, a low tone resonated, deep harmonic, almost like approval. Max turned, but Niara only smiled. It recognizes our pact. The vault is alive again, Max Reeves. And now it has chosen us. Thunder rolled faintly outside, distant and slow, like applause from the heavens. Max looked toward the exit, where the storm had begun to clear the first streaks of dawn, painting the sky in pale gold. So what now? Niara's eyes glowed softly in the morning light. Now we hunt the curator. The sun rose weakly over Erida, its light filtering through the dissipating storm clouds, like the hesitant hand of a god. The red-tinged forest below shimmered with moisture steam rising from the scorched soil. What had once been a battlefield now looked like the aftermath of creation itself, destruction and renewal woven together. Max Reeves' Oz stood at the bunker's mouth, the humid wind brushing against his face. He inhaled deeply. The air still tasted metallic but alive. Behind him, Niara was silent, her form limned by the soft bioluminescence that never truly faded from her skin. She had changed since the night before, not just in power, but in presence. She no longer moved like a prisoner of eternity, but like something reborn. Her posture was freer, her tone less restrained. Even her eyes, once cold as deep water, now carried warmth that could melt steel. You look human when you stare at the sunrise like that, Max said. Niara tilted her head, her fox-like ears twitching slightly. And you look ancient when you talk like a poet. He smirked. Comes with nearly dying 3 times in 24 hours. You are resilient, she said, her voice thoughtful. Fragile bodies, unfragile spirits. Perhaps that is humanity's true adaptation. Don't tell my species that. We'll start thinking we're invincible again. Her tail flicked lazily. Too late for that. The quiet between them wasn't awkward, it was alive. The storm's echo hummed faintly in the distance, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Finally, Max broke the silence. The curator. If they're still out there, they'll know the Krell team failed. They'll send more. Niara nodded. Then we must move before they can react. The vault is safe for now, but it cannot stay hidden forever. Its signal has already bled through the storm. We can't defend this place alone. Her eyes met his. No, but we can begin something greater. She gestured for him to follow, leading him deeper into the vault to a chamber he hadn't seen before. The air here was cooler, older. In the center stood a pillar of light surrounded by concentric rings of metal and stone. This, Niara said, placing her hand on the pillar, is the Heart Codex. It connects all Vexari vaults across the galaxy. When I was sealed here, I severed the link to prevent contagion. But now, you're thinking of turning it back on, Max said. Not fully, just enough to listen. To know which vaults still exist and which have already fallen. Risky, he said, if the curator's network catches the signal. They'll come, she finished for him. But we cannot fight what we cannot see. Knowledge is risk, always has been. Max looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Do it. She pressed her palm to the light. The vault responded instantly. The floor beneath them thrummed with power, the rings rotating, locking into alignment. Lines of glowing script raced along the walls, alien, beautiful, incomprehensible. A 3-dimensional star map blossomed above them, shimmering like a cosmic web. Thousands of points of light, each one a vault. Then one by one, most of them dimmed, fading to black. Niara inhaled sharply. No, so many are gone. How many left? Max asked quietly. She counted the surviving lights. 6, perhaps 7. He crossed his arms. Then that's where we start. She looked at him, almost startled. You would leave your homeworld, your species. He shrugged. You think anyone back home would believe me if I told them I met a blue lightning goddess with a 3,000-year guilt complex? Her ears flattened, slightly a mock glare on her face. I prefer scientist. Sure, he said with a grin. You can be both. She sighed, but there was a trace of amusement in it. Your arrogance will get you killed one day. Probably, but at least I'll have good company on the way out. The star map shifted again, zooming into a cluster of coordinates blinking red. Niara frowned. Their Nexus station, the curator's central trading hub. Max recognized the name immediately. I've been there. Black market the size of a small moon. You can buy anything weapons, slaves, lost civilizations, and crates. If the curator's auctioning Vexary tech. She met his gaze. Then we ended there. A quiet intensity filled the space between them, an unspoken agreement solidifying into resolve. Nera turned toward the control dais and gestured. A small pod emerged from the floor, metallic and elegant, its surface alive with shifting patterns. It's a transport core, she said. The vault built it to maintain contact with the Council long ago. It can still fly, though its stealth systems may be unreliable. Max walked around it, impressed. You mean this thing's been sitting here for 3,000 years and still works? Vexary craftsmanship, she said proudly. We never built for decay. He whistled. Human engineers could learn something from you. They would ruin it with cost efficiency. He laughed. Can't argue with that. Nera placed her hand on the pun, and it responded, the metal folding open like flower petals. Inside the cabin glowed with bioluminescent light, organic yet mechanical. Max hesitated. Once we leave, we might not make it back. She looked back at him. You already changed the course of your life when you entered this vault. Yeah, he said, smiling faintly. Guess I just didn't know how big the detour was going to be. They entered the ship. The doors sealed behind them with a whisper, and the hum of ancient engines rose from below. Outside, the forest glowed under the emerging dawn, a world reborn, its guardian finally free. As the ship lifted, the vault's surface shimmered, closing over like a wound healing itself. Within moments, it vanished beneath the foliage, hidden once again, but no longer forgotten. From the cockpit, Max watched Erida shrink beneath them. You think we'll ever come back? Perhaps, Inyara said softly, when it's safe to rest. And until then, her eyes gleamed with quiet fire. Until then, we hunt. The stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped into FTL. Hours later, somewhere between star systems, the cockpit lights dimmed. Niara stood at the console, her tail swaying lazily. Our next destination, Nexus Station, the curator's stronghold. Max leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. How do we hit a place like that? It's crawling with mercs, syndicates, smugglers. And that's just the lobby. We won't strike them head on, she said. We infiltrate, recover what they have, and erase their data cores. He raised an eyebrow. You've been alone for 3 millennia, and your first plan is a heist. Her lips curved in a dangerous smile. Solitude breeds creativity. Remind me never to get on your bad side. She turned toward him, her expression softening. Max Reeves, she said, her voice like velvet, laced with static. I have waited lifetimes to find purpose again. And you gave me that. He smiled wryly. You make it sound like I planned it. You simply were, she said, the right storm at the right moment. She stepped closer, and for a moment the hum of the ship faded. Her hand rested against his chest, her touch warm, almost electric. I told you before, she murmured, my fast ended when you arrived. Not from hunger, but from emptiness. You ended that. He looked down at her, the faint glow of her eyes reflecting in his. And now she said, her tail curling gently around his leg, I am full of purpose, of curiosity, perhaps even of affection. He grinned. I'll take that over dinner any day. Good, she said softly, because I no longer need to feed. Their lips met, the contact charged with more than attraction. It was the merging of species, the closing of the distance between guilt and forgiveness. When they finally parted, Max chuckled quietly. Guess we're partners in every sense now. Nera smiled. Partners? Guardians? Maybe even legends if we survive. He looked out the viewport where the stars swirled like silver dust. If we're lucky, no one will ever know our names. If we're unlucky, she said, they'll write songs about us. He laughed. You've got a weird idea of luck. Perspective, she replied, gazing at the infinite. For too long, I thought survival was enough. Now I see it's what we do after survival that defines us. The ship emerged from hyperspace, the massive silhouette of Nexus Station, filling the view, a hollowed asteroid surrounded by traffic lanes and the glimmer of thousands of ships. Somewhere within its heart, the curator waited, weaving its web of stolen knowledge. Nera's hand brushed against Max's as she whispered, "Ready." He grinned. "I was born ready, just didn't know it'd be for this." She smiled, the stormlight of her soul flickering behind her eyes. "Then let us bring order to chaos human." As the ship descended toward the neon-lit labyrinth of Nexus, their reflection merged on the glass human and Vexari's scarred and radiant predator and protector. Two beings born from different worlds bound by the same truth. Knowledge is power, but wisdom is survival. And as the first alarms of their infiltration plan began to sound in the distance, Max's voice broke the silence, steady, defiant, and utterly human. HFY, humanity fuck yeah.